Hi, my name is Markus Stahl, and I am an automation engineer at Deutsche Post Adress. Today I would like to present you a showcase about how to start with Open Source RPA. And the showcase is ourselves, Deutsche Post Adress. We are a small and a big company at the same time. We are a small company in such a way that we have only 140 employees, but we are also big because we are in fact a joint venture between two big successful corporations, Deutsche Post DHL Group on the one side and Bertelsmann on the other side. And we have even two daughter companies. We have colleagues in Arbis and we have colleagues at Riser. And altogether, we make sure that your addresses of your clients are always up to date. So that if you send them mail, it really reaches its destination. And as every company, we have a lot of processes. We deal with physical mail, obviously, and there are many processes that are worth automating. And that's what we did. The story of process automation is actually a story of our testers from the quality assurance team. They had introduced Robot Framework back in the end of 2014 for test automation. Before that, tester had to follow numbing click path over and over and over again, following protocols over and over again. It was repetitive, it was tiring, it was numbing, it was a work that you would consider today as torture. And about the following years, I cannot say much because I myself joined only in 2017. But I can say that even then, we only used write and basically Selenium keywords. And we never touched any Python library or any Python code. And it was enough. We were good in our job and it was sufficient for more than 2 years. And test automation went so well for us that we became more confident in our abilities and started to rethink our setup. And a few of us started peeking into the Python code and started to make a few adjustments and see the immediate effects in the keywords. And as a result of this, in January 2018, one of my colleagues, a tester, published our first open source contribution. And it wasn't only our first contribution from us as testers, but it was also the first of us as a company from Deutsche Post Adress. And for me, this is a huge milestone because we have a lot of talented and brilliant software developers. But it was a tester that published the first open source contribution. And it's not something that you would expect from somebody you usually think of that they are a little bit distant from a technology. They have to focus on the business stuff. For me, this is evidence that testers don't need to hide behind their more technically advanced colleagues. They are one of them. In the following months of 2018, we reflected a lot on ourselves. So, because everything was changing, we felt that it wasn't quite right anymore to be a final gateway everybody had to pass through, because all those waterfall models, they somehow changed and we went to a more agile approach and where the skills emerge into each other and the disciplines merge. So not only we as a team evolved, but also the whole organization evolved. Silos started to erode and merge into the related neighboring teams. And we as testers, we were part of it. And we started writing articles and going to conferences and started telling our story about how testers became more than only testers. And as we grew our social network and got to know more and more people, also within our company, we learned that we had colleagues that had strange tasks like looking on data in Excel files and validating it manually with the naked eye. A job that you wouldn't think is really a task for someone educated and well paid. And at the same time, we heard rumors from the Robot Framework community that people wrote test cases that could order tickets for concerts. So at the end of the year, we had the vague idea, next year, in 2019, let's have a look at this RPA thing. With those vague ideas, I went to my first RoboCon, and it was a blast. First of all, It was a one-day conference and it took place at my birthday. It was like a huge birthday party for me. And one of the greatest gifts was that there were so many people like me. I hadn't realized, but we were alone all the time. We were looking for people who had these similar challenges like us and had similar ideas and had made similar progress like us. And suddenly you meet 300 other people who are all like you. And Antje from RoboCop opened the conference and made this really good claim that everyone who knows robot framework knows RPA. And this is absolutely true. As soon as he said it, it was obvious. Because remember, the old job of a tester, maybe the old job of you, walking click paths over and over again, repetitive, tiring, even almost torture. That's the story of RPA. And everyone here at the RoboCon had fixed this problem already with Robot Framework long time ago. So after RoboCon, I came back with a pile of ideas in my backpack. And I came back planning to find a process to finally automate something with the Robot Framework. But it turned out that I didn't need to find a process. The process found us. Because what we didn't know was that we had colleagues that had to process physical envelopes and had to look at a code that was written on those envelopes. And they had to read the code and type it into a web form. But the web form wasn't designed for this use case, so there was a lot of clicking and waiting and page loading for each single envelope. And they had to process a few hundred envelopes a day, plus on top to their normal work. So we didn't know about this, and at one point, at one day, short after RoboCon, one of those colleagues got fed up, got a box full of envelopes, went up to our IT department and said, "This is a nightmare. We are dreaming about this stuff. We hallucinate envelopes everywhere. Please do something, help us." And that's when the testers realized, wait a second. We have a test case that does the same thing with fake test data every night in our nightly regression tests. So all we had to do was scan the envelopes, apply some text recognition on it, and with the text recognition results, feed our test case. Ready was our first automated process. And it's still running like this. It works like a charm. The solution went so smoothly that we went public in our company and openly asked, "Dear colleagues, do you have more of those repetitive tasks? Maybe we can help you." And we found a few processes and they were worth automating, so we did. But we didn't implement so many because we had a few central challenges, like central monitoring and orchestration of tasks. Our solution was not scalable. Basically, every robot task was wrapped in a Jenkins job, and those Jenkins jobs were scheduled. It was working for a few jobs because you can monitor a few Jenkins jobs at a time quite conveniently, but this solution wasn't scalable enough. However, in the start of 2020, we implemented another robot, which sole purpose was not helping our colleagues and relieving them of tedious work, but it was actually its own product, generating actual revenue. For me, this is a huge milestone. You know, all those discussions, how much worth is the work of a tester? Is it really adding value, and how much value does it add? And all those things. You can never do enough testing, we know. But how much is it worth, and how much should you pay for it? And you can really put a price tag on it. And you're basically always a cost center. And suddenly, this cost center generated revenue. This was huge. Of course, at that point in time, with all our transition, it's not fair anymore to call us testers. The silos of professions, they had fade already. And all our team members, they now refer to themselves as engineers. So we are more or less all alike with different skill sets. And our milestones now came in with a higher pace. So last summer, we integrated APIs based on the Open API specification. And we integrated those APIs into our robot. Why is this a huge benefit? because from open API specifications, you can easily generate Python clients. And Python clients you can wrap easily into robot keywords and robot libraries. And suddenly you have an API in robot framework communicating with a service that could be implemented in any programming language you like. It doesn't even need to be implemented by one of you or your colleagues. We even integrated APIs from an API management platform. So the robot task itself, they mainly only orchestrate the API calls. And finally, we found a way to visualize our processes themselves. There were talks about, and lightning talks, I think, in RoboCon 2020, about how to visualize processes and how to integrate them into robot framework. And they were on our list for checking, but somehow we remembered that we had heard about something called Camunda that would be good for orchestrating processes and tasks. And we had to look at it, and it has a rich REST API. So we wrote robot keywords for it, that you can conveniently access Camunda and communicate and integrate it into robot framework, and published those keywords under the Camunda library and published it open source. If you want to learn more about this, please have a look at the lightning talk tomorrow. There I will show it in action. But in short, Camunda visualizes your processes and gives it back to your business people. Because what happened before was we automated processes for our business people, but as soon as the process was automated, the business people didn't see it anymore. They assumed it's all going fine. All we could check was, is it green? But is the amount of data going through, is it the right amount? How do I have to interpret the data? We couldn't fact check it business-wise. Technically, yes, we had it under control, but we couldn't control it business-wise. Now with Camunda and the visualization, the business people get back control about the process. And now even there with the business people, the skill sets and the teams fade into each other and are working together. You probably expect some blueprint or some shopping list, what you need in order to start with open source RPA. What you should have learned by now is that it really depends on your own evolution and on your own environment. So it's not only important to have the right tools or the right shopping list, but you also have to evolve as an organization and as a team. Last year, I gave a workshop about how to integrate robot framework to DevOps infrastructure. And it was about version control and branching, and especially how to build pipelines and test your test cases and schedule tests automatically. And so with all those aspects, I chose Gitlab as the tool to be used in the workshop. And after the workshop, one student said, well, it was more a GitLab workshop than a robot framework workshop. And maybe you could think that, but in fact, GitLab was only an example. Every one of us is a tester, and every one of us has a software developer sitting next to them who already uses tools that do version control, creating pipelines, scheduling jobs, doing testing. And if you don't use GitLab, you have something else already in your company doing the job for you. So GitLab, or the tools that you will see now, they are only an example. You in your company for sure have something that does the job. So when you start with automation, you have to think about your requirements. So you need something to build your robot, maybe compile the source code, deploy the robot somewhere, execute the single task, orchestrate the task. Of course, you need an IDE for sure, to write your robots. And you need a programming language. I call it here the API backend. So if you choose Python or .NET or Java or whatever universe, in the beginning, you stick to this. So you have to live with the capabilities those languages offer you. Java has a lot of Maven dependencies, so maybe they are sufficient for you. I don't know what you have in .NET. But I'm pretty sure that every molecule in the universe has its own Python module. Of course, all these choices are overwhelming. And maybe there comes a vendor along and says, don't bother with the choice. I give you a full package. Just pay me a price and you get the full package. And it looks fine because you get rid of the choice, but at the same time, you're locked to this tool stack. You're not flexible anymore because you cannot exchange one piece in this stack because they all belong together. So we obviously didn't use a full stack vendor. We used the tools that were available and they fit. It was a smooth transition and we were happy with it. But about a year ago, people were asking me, Markus, why do we use Robot Framework? Our corporations, they use something else. They have a vendor that gives them a full package to a full price. Why don't we use that? And I thought, oh, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should have checked first if we have any alternative to the already working solutions that we already had in-house. So this is the setup that we had. We had GitLab Community Edition that was free. We had Jenkins for task execution and task orchestration and also for simple monitoring. That was also for free. We used self-written Java services and Python modules, of course, free. And we used the Community Edition from PyCharm for development, or in some cases also Red. We don't have a policy which IDE you have to use. You can choose your own. And then I checked into the pricing of the vendor everybody was talking about. And I was shocked. It was extremely expensive. Even the databases had to run on Microsoft Windows with a Microsoft SQL database. And you couldn't choose anything cheaper and normal. And so you had to pay for each layer. And as you see here, for the setup that we used 1 year ago, we would have to have paid 100,000 euros a year only in license fees. There's no price included yet for trainings and additional resources. It's only the additional price for the licenses. And on the right side, you see that's the tool stack we used. And it's pretty convenient. It's 0 euros. If I would have gone to my management and asked, I could help a few colleagues to reduce their manual efforts, please give me 100,000 euros. They would still check the envelopes and read codes by themselves. And now there comes another disadvantage. You're locked into those tools offered to you. You cannot use anything else. Right here, you can switch your tooling. See here, maybe you don't want to use Jenkins anymore for orchestration execution. Use RoboCloud. Why not? Maybe you want to use Kibana for monitoring. Use it. And this is what we are doing right now and what we are doing all the time, because technology always evolves. If you lock yourself to a full stack of tools, you have to stick with it. You always have to stick to yesterday because the technology moves on. Nowadays, nobody installs software anymore on servers or even not anymore on virtual machines. Everything is containerized, and you could not foresee this a few years ago. And this evolution will go on. If you stuck yourself to the current technology, you stay in today, which is yesterday by tomorrow. So this is our current setup or our soon-to-be setup. At the time of this recording, this is not quite the correct setup, but I'm pretty sure by the time in 3 weeks, when you will see this at the RoboCon, this is the setup that we have now. So we still use GitLab, we still use PyCharm, but we're going to host our robot tasks as independent services on Kubernetes. And all those tasks, they fetch the workload from Camunda, get the workload back, process it, call some APIs, and give the result back to Camunda. And Camunda and the business people have the control about the process. And we also already use Elasticsearch and Kibana for logging. And to be honest, our open source RPA toolstack isn't free anymore because we invested into a few of those tools because they offer us more features in the Enterprise Edition that are actually worth investing for. But we are investing much, much less than in a full stack vendor. So for example, we invested into a GitLab Enterprise Edition. And we also invested into PyCharm Enterprise Editions because it has better Kubernetes integration. So we are now paying for a few more extras, but because we decide for those extras. It's not because they're in a package and we never use it, probably, but because we decided those extras are worth the money. This already answers probably the question, is open source RPA free? No, it isn't. First of all, you probably want to pay for a few features that you really need and really like. And probably you have different priorities than we have. Probably you still use the GitLab or something free for your versioning, but you want to invest into task orchestration or task execution because it has a higher priority for you. But you also need to invest into trainings. Kubernetes isn't easy. Check out the talk from Niels about the Kubernetes library. And also Camunda, you can teach yourself, but it's really worth investing into a training and get a head start. And also Elasticsearch isn't simple. I cannot learn by myself. I don't get it how to build indexes and what are documents and stuff. So it's worth to invest in those training. And you have to invest into resources as people, because process automation doesn't happen as side. You have to tell a few people, okay, you guys, you do know process automation. So, but this would also happen with the one vendor. So you would have to train your people in this vendor technology, give them trainings, and you have to set those people aside and say, okay, you now administrate and operate only those vendor-specific tools. And the problem is those people are stuck. All they can do is manage this one tool, this one platform. And if you invest into your open source tool stack, your people become more diverse, and they can be software engineers, they can be test engineers, process engineers. If they're skilled in talent and find their talent, they can be operators. Maybe they learn that it's easy to launch containers and orchestrate containers with Kubernetes. They for sure become business process experts. So you see, if you invest into this open source tool stack, any tool stack you have, you get a much more benefit out of it. I hope you found this session remotely inspiring, and I, for my part, would be curious to learn from your experience. Did you have similar experience or different experience? Please talk to me here on the conference and share your story with me, or anytime at LinkedIn.
Hey Markus, welcome to RoboCon.
Thank you. Hi.
Awesome to have you. Getting a lot of positive feedback here. Someone said they would buy a used car from you at this point because you're so direct and honest. Awesome. So first question is from Manny. Wants to know, does it make sense to you that big companies create separate RPA departments while RPA is so similar to test automation?
You mean the companies that offer RPA, or the companies that implement RPA?
I think implementing.
Well, yes. Well, that's a good philosophy. We can talk about this maybe in the speaker's corner for a long time, but I think it depends. On the one side, you save resources because you join everything and everybody does the same. But on the other side, competition between departments also rises or supports innovation. So probably depends. Maybe we can elaborate this in the speaker's corner.
Absolutely. Next question is from Adam, and Adam wants to know, how do you send data into Elastic, either through Kafka topics or Logstash or some other method?
We use a robot listener, and it's a really basic one, and it simply sends a dictionary to a TCP socket from Logstash. And then it gets imported somehow magically into Elasticsearch and visualized in Kibana. But I don't know about this. I know about the listener stuff.
Nice. Someone wants to know, do you use Camunda specifically for orchestrating RPA tasks, or use it for other things?
Right now, only for the RPA task, but it's growing and more people get interested. It's quite new in our company.
Have you ever messed up data on your production using RPA? How do you ensure that it does not happen?
The data? No. How to make sure that it doesn't happen? Well, if the tasks are quite small, and if, especially with when you use Camunda, you have some mechanisms to rescue process flows. So we use those like retries or those compensation patterns. But no, I think it didn't happen that we messed up our production data.
Okay, Tristana wants to know, do you have any ideas or strategies on how to make an intuitive report analysis for clients using RPA?
A report for clients. No, I'm still experimenting with that. So my first idea were Kibana dashboards or something, but they are quite complicated to draw. No, I don't know.
Okay. Next question is, what is the internal process for bringing in new tools that individuals have seen and like into the stack?
Oh, it's quite easy actually. I mean, you're free to experiment with tools, and then you show it to colleagues, and then you present it like we have so-called like internal engineer universities, or something you could call it. And then you present your tool and present your findings, and then more people jump on it, or you get feedback, and somehow it moves on and then becomes a thing. So it's really people driven.
Absolutely. And I love how you said Elasticsearch, Elasticstack wasn't as intuitive for you. It's not for me either. So what kind of training did you get that actually helped you with that?
With Elastic, no, I didn't get the training. I have very competent colleagues. I did participate in a 1 week Camunda training, and that really pushed things forward again.
How'd you convince management to invest in education like that training?
They did it before. I didn't need to convince them. They needed to convince me to take the budget.
Awesome. Did you come across any libraries for automating voice over IP test?
Voice over? You mean like transcripting?
I don't know, Jagan.
I don't know what.
Give a little more, or seeing him in the speaker lounge. Yeah, I said yes. So I guess it was
yes to what?
It was just to the what you just said what the voice over IP was.
Okay, so for getting it into text, yes, I think Google has something. Of course, Google has it, and because a student of us, she made her I think bachelor thesis with interviews, and then she used this API for transcripting the interviews.
Nice. We have time for one last question. I'm a little over, but Ken just got one in. So Ken wants to know: are there any? There are many RPA flavors. Which one do you recommend?
RPA flavors.
Yeah.
What is a flavor?
I guess it's options. So many options for RPA. I don't know. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, maybe also in the speakers corner. I need to ask questions back there.
Absolutely. All right, Markus, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm getting a lot of questions, so you're probably going to get up a lot in the speakers area in RoboCon venue. Thanks so much for contributing to RoboCon today. Today. Appreciate it.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Markus. Cheers.